Welcome to season 2 of the CMO Chapters Podcast. This year, I'm super excited, super thrilled to announce that we have an absolute whole fabulous host of CMOs, market leaders, experts within their field who've been very, very generous with their time to share some candid, pretty heartfelt, honest conversations around some personal career journeys that they've experienced, also some lessons that they've learned along the way. This season, it's going to really be your action-packed, one-stop shop toolbox for anything to do with career growth, professional development, leadership progression, and also importantly, what it really takes nowadays as a marketer to stand out in what is, as we know, a very competitive market. It's absolutely got all sorts for everybody, and I really hope you enjoy. Welcome to the CMO Chapter Podcast, where we dive deep into the dynamic world of Chief Marketing Officers. Join us as we explore the careers, insights, and strategies of top marketing executives who shape the brands we know and love. Whether you're a seasoned marketer, aspiring CMO, or simply just curious to understand what it really takes to step into the shoes of the CMO. This podcast is your backstage pass to discovering what it's like to really lead and innovate in the ever-evolving landscape of business. Stay tuned as we uncover the stories of the visionaries behind the brand. Welcome.
Thank you, Lucy. It is an absolute delight, honour and privilege to be here.
Oh, thank you. So it sounds a little bit stalkerish here, but I've been sort of a bit of a fan of Jac for quite a while. I've been following Jac on LinkedIn and certainly through the fabulous podcast. But I really wanted to get you on the show today, really tap into a bit more detail around what you've done, your background, and really discuss in more detail, advice and tips you've got for those aspiring leaders out there that are looking to potentially go down the CMO path. Before we get to it, Jac, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you, Lucy. I'm a bit of a fan of yours too. I see all the great things that you do on LinkedIn and the fact that you've got a recruitment business and are trying to find talent and put talent in great roles, I think is an awesome purpose. So I think that, there's some mutual admiration between us.
Thank you.
Jac Phillips, who is she? Well, that's a very good question. She's still trying to figure that out herself. I have been, on an awesome journey. I've had a career for about 35 years. That career kicked off in radio in a small town in New Zealand. At school, I got told off for talking, so I went and got paid for it instead because I was good at it. And so I went and joined a commercial radio station when I was very young, 20, and that was my first role was on air and in commercial radio, and so media was where I started, and then moved across the ditch, as they say, or the Dutch, and started my marketing career in Australia, though I did work in a couple more radio stations in my early days, which was fantastic, and that sort of, helped me build my network. I didn't really know anyone in Australia when I arrived at 21. From there, it seemed like a natural progression to go from sort of media into marketing. And I've always been curious about behaviour and people, Lucy. I really have. So anyone who's curious about behaviour and people, and insights is likely to find themselves probably loving marketing and marketing as a career. So off I went into the world of marketing, and I pretty much started in agency land, actually creative agency land. I moved from Canberra to Sydney and started in my first relationship marketing agency. And that was an awesome experience. And DM and RM, direct marketing, relationship marketing was right up my alley because, again, I was so curious about people. I was probably more interested in that than I was above the line and advertising, even though we were part of an advertising agency. The relationship market function was a component of it. So from there, moved around Australia working in different agencies, then found myself bloody pregnant. Goodness knows how. Immaculate conception, of course, and hightailed it back to where my mother and father lived, which was Perth, WA at this point, because I'd need some help. And again, worked in some agencies and set up a little consulting business while I was at home with two very, very little babies. So quickly had another one following the first, and decided I could manage. I had two good kids. They were pretty easy. I was pretty organised. I had a lot of help. I had my mother-in-law across the road. I had mum up the road. So I thought, look, I can probably go and do a little bit of marketing consulting and advising, which is what I did. And it kept me interested and I guess a little bit more interesting because whilst I love being a mum, I also just needed something with the brain. And I was also, I guess, conscious of not becoming irrelevant or losing too much, I guess, information and or training and development by being at home full time.
Okay.
So this is back in the days where organisations certainly, weren't doing the parental leave support that they might do today.
Yeah.
So while I was at home, I said to my husband, I'd love to go to Asia and work in Asia. I had seen some really interesting things going on in Asia. I was reading voracious. And so he said, well, do it. He's always been my biggest supporter, and he was always around for the kids, which meant I had that ability to do that. So off I trotted up to Singapore and had a chat to a couple of recruitment agencies, a couple of Lucys that were up in Singapore. And they looked at me, they looked at my resume, they said, this is interesting, nothing here at the moment, but we'll stay in touch. I don't think I was home a week and I got a call, and it was Leo Burnett saying they were looking for a client services director for a component of their business, which was relationship marketing.
Right.
And I got a gig in Singapore. So we moved the family up to Singapore, and that was in the year 2000.
Gosh.
So 25 years ago.
And when you look back, because I know you've, since then, I mean, you were obviously with ANZ for like banking for a long time. And I understand, I think it was Visa was the last.
Visa was my last corporate gig.
Yeah. How did you, I mean, I sort of, I'll give you my opinion here, but I sort of look at people like yourself and, you do come across as very confident, you have this infectious sort of energy and enthusiasm. And, you look I look at LinkedIn, you look back at your career, and it seems like, how have you, seized these opportunities? Like, is it down to honestly good networking? Is it down to luck? Like, what's the secret formula?
That's a great question, and one I've probably not reflected on much. I've missed out on way more jobs than I've ever had. So this idea that I've just gone from one job to the other and it's all been tickety-boo, that's the Instagram look and feel, but it's absolutely not reality. And I've been given some hard feedback in my time, and I've probably missed out on a lot of feedback that I should have been given in my time for various reasons. But I just kept going. I just kept believing in myself, I guess. And look, a lot of it was bluff. I had a father who was incredible, and he's still alive today, and still a bit of a mentor without him even realizing it. I remember saying to him in my first serious challenge I had when I was at the radio station in WA, and we were downsizing, media, everyone was cutting budgets. And I was told, not only will you have an on-air segment, but you're also going to need to learn how to produce commercials. We need you in a production studio 4 mornings a week for 3 hours. And I was put in this studio and shown this 16-track desk, which looked like something in the front of an aeroplane. I remember calling my father saying, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and I can't do this. And he said, how do you know you can't do it? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, have you given it a crack? And I said, no. He said, well, go and have a go at it, then call me and tell me you can't do it. And of course, like anything, I learned very quickly. It wasn't actually that difficult. I needed a few hours to practice, and of course, the more I did, the better I got. And that stayed with me. If you don't have a go and if you don't put yourself forward, how will you ever know?
Yeah.
And most people that hire you aren't hiring you to fail. They're hiring you to succeed because their reputation's on the line. So I sort of took, I think, a lot of that with me when I would go for roles and think, well, this is a bit of a stretch, but I need the stretch. I don't want to stay where I am. And I want to learn something new. I want to work for somebody different. So I should expect that I don't know it all and that it will be different. And that's okay. The self-talk, I think, positive self-talk just kept me applying for things and giving things a go. The network has played a massive, massive role in my trajectory. And my network has never worked harder for me than it does now.
Yeah.
And how timely, because I work for myself and I need that work, to work for. I don't have, a corporate role to lean on. I am my pipeline. I am the future.
Yeah. I heard a saying recently, actually, that my network is my net worth. That's so, so true.
It's a
Uh,
really interesting one, the network. I don't know whether you're okay to get into this now, but of course, I coach so many people, and particularly senior level women and a lot of female marketers.
mm,
And they'll often say to me, I'll say, "How's your network? How networked are you?" And the first thing they'll go is, "I hate that whole term,
yeah,
network. I hate the idea of having to go out and network." And I said, it really does need a rebrand, because I've I've got a feeling the way I'm thinking about networking and the way you're thinking about networking is different. And they say, "How so?" And I say, networking is about what you can actually do for others. So when you are relying on your network to help you, which is usually when you want another job or your next job or a new job,
wow,
it's actually too late. Because if you are helping people all the way through and talking to people and being really open and genuinely building and interested in helping others and helping new people, then when the time comes, that reciprocation is there.
yeah,
People will absolutely help you, and people will talk about you, and they will promote you.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree with that. Completely. I have a personal KPI where once a week I'll introduce 5 people for coffees with other people.
Fabulous.
And whether it's CMOs with CMOs and I'm not, it's not like a charge for that, but I think, well, you get remembered and you're spoken about and, you're also doing some good.
There's there's so much value in that. I get genuine joy, delight, and purpose out of connecting people. I mean,
Mm,
it's part of my proposition as an executive coach. So when you sign up for me, I actually create a package for you. And within that package is I will introduce you to new networks. I will help
yeah.
you access networks that you've not accessed before, if it's relevant and if it's appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and look, I spent an hour last night connecting 2 or 3 really great people with some other people. And it's something I really look forward to doing.
It's fantastic. Looking back at your career and knowing everything that you know now, is there any advice that you think, you know what, I'd have given that Jac Phillips when she was 28 years old, a bit of advice? What words of wisdom would you share?
Oh, how long have you got? So if you are a leader or you are somebody coming through the ranks listening to this podcast now, you've got clearly great taste because you're listening to sentences. But the advice I would give myself, look, back yourself. You deserve a seat at the table. You know,
Mm,
imposter syndrome creeps in at
mm,
28, at 48, at 58, at 78. Would you believe it? That just never leaves you, but you don't worry about that. You just work through it. You're more capable than you give yourself credit for, yeah? And confidence comes from action. So speak up, share your ideas, trust that your perspective is valuable. Realize that relationships matter more than titles.
mm,
Success isn't just about climbing this corporate ladder. It's actually about building these strong, genuine relationships, your network, as we talk about. Yeah. The connections you make now, the mentors, the peers, the clients, the mentees, they'll shape your career in ways that you would never predict. So always invest in those relationships.
mm,
Um, get comfortable with discomfort. Yeah. Uncertainty is cool. Uncertainty is exciting. There's only 2 certainties, sadly, death and taxes, and the fact I'll have a glass of wine on a Friday. That's 3 certainties. But growth happens outside of our comfort zone. Whenever I have actually excelled or learned more about myself, it's when I've actually done something I've been a bit scared about. Yeah.
mm,
I've actually tried something in a job. I've got on to something and I thought, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. I'll ask others, I'll read, or I'll learn. So say yes before you feel 100% ready. And think beyond the job. Yeah, I talk about personal brands a lot. Build your brand, right? Your reputation is your
yeah.
currency. It really is. It's not just about excelling in your role, it's about being known for something. Start writing, start speaking, mentor others. Your personal brand will open doors long before you realize you need them. My awesome podcast co host, Gabrielle Dolan, Rahl, she says, "What's a personal brand? It's not what you say about yourself, it's what others say about you when you're not
Yeah.
more." And it's so true. Yeah. And we've all got a personal brand, whether you like it or not. The difference is some of us are trying to shape and control our personal brand, whereas others don't. And I
Yeah.
think that's a worry. And I think finally, play the long game. Yeah. Balance results, reputation. Yes, they matter. Of course, we need results. You need results to,
Yeah.
to demonstrate you know your craft, you're an expert, or you are qualified. But how you achieve the results really matters. Yeah. You know, who you are is actually more important than what you do.
Yeah.
So think about the long term and maybe exercise a bit of patience.
I think that's some fantastic ingredients you've given us there. So thank you. I love it. Love it. I want to ask a question. So, I mean, a lot of the listeners that listen to this podcast are, as I've said, aspiring CMOs, or they might be at that mid-level management remit, and they're thinking about, I really want to get to that head of, or next level up. What is it they should probably be aware of that, when we're going into leadership, until you're in it, you kind of go, right, okay, I
Mm.
was aware of that. What would you say to those, or give those individuals? What piece of advice would you give them?
I think as you are growing and learning and developing, get a coach. And I don't say that. I mean, I've had coaches for years, and they've absolutely made a difference to me. So somebody that actually makes you stop and look in the mirror and reflect, because I was really good at bum down, head up, just go forward.
Yeah.
My idea of reflection was an hour earlier, nothing more. Again, being in a bit of a hurry, being quite ambitious. So what that means when you're not reflecting, it means that you're not actually stopping and thinking about, what are my strengths? How have I changed? What do I want to dial up? What do I want to dial down? And also, what do I bring to the table? And I mentioned that before. Be really clear about who you are. This comes back to unique value proposition. I think, Lucy, really, what makes you different
Yeah.
from other people? What's going to help you stand out? And that really is defining your superpower, or your strengths. Are you a growth strategist? Are you a brand builder? Are you a
Yeah.
digital expert? Or are you a customer insights guru? Whatever it is that is, and you can be a generalist too, but there will be something in there that is very much your wheelhouse, the stuff that really fires you up. Well, what is it about that makes you different or better than somebody else who's the same? Yeah. So you need to position yourself and the answer to that to solving business problems.
Yeah.
So you're not just another marketer. Yeah. Having this clear narrative around, what ties together your experience and also your impact. And that is that strong personal brand. Here's what people tell me I do really, really well. And here are some proof points
Yeah.
to demonstrate how I've done that really, really well. Um, I used to giggle, the marketing department, the colouring in department.
Yeah.
I often had huge budgets, and I never ever took advantage of that. I was so, I guess, privileged and honoured that I was the trustee of that money on behalf of that brand or organisation. But if I wasn't showing results and showing the commercial acumen and saying, well, this is how we're getting the return on the investment. This is how we're going to track these results and measure them. This is how we know this is going to work. Or if we don't know it's going to work, we're going to do a test and learn first. So it's the ability to be able to take all of those things and demonstrate your commercial nous, your commercial acumen. And that has to be also about the strategic acumen that you've got too. So showcasing that and being able to do that in a way that really shows revenue growth, cost savings, ROI, partnerships and relationship building. So you should be a marketer that absolutely understands the value of strategic partnerships internally as much as
Yeah.
externally.
Yeah.
Some of the best work I've done, and particularly in my later years where I was given access to really great resources and I had a lot of influence, was partnering with things that maybe the brands weren't traditionally known to partner with. Visa, a fairly traditional, conventional digital payments network. Yes, it was digital. Obviously, it became digital. What was plastic initially, but saying, actually, if we want kids to use Visa on their phone, then we need to be where the kids are. Where are they? Oh, they're at festival.
Yeah.
So how do I get Visa at Splendor in the Grass? And how do I make sure that experience isn't because we're trying to sell somebody something, but is actually trying to enhance their festival experience?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so working in a way that, and showing people that you've got a really creative and broader thinking when it comes to you compared to others. I think, that's how you're memorable. That's how you show initiative and creativity.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, completely. I wanted to ask, throughout your career, I mean, when people become leaders, and I know for one, when I became a leader myself, it was almost right, off you go, sink or swim, and there's no rule book or instruction manual that comes with that. And so, was it a case that did you shape your leadership skills from looking at other leaders that you admired? And I mean, we know that there's leaders out there that you go, absolutely not. I want to avoid that completely. But you know what? I love that. And I love how you've operated that. So, how did you shape your leadership style?
Yeah, exactly how you described. I have worked with some fuckwits, I can tell you, right? At the very senior levels, people that were paid extraordinarily
Yeah.
well, who treated others appallingly, and who actually were there because of their network.
Yeah.
The irony, right?
Yeah.
But I learned from them. I learned how not to be. And I sort of knew that anyway, okay, because there was a misalignment of my values and their values anyway. But I also, it reinforced and reminded me how powerful leadership is when it is done well, and how awful and impactful it is when it's not done well. And it's actually been leadership that has driven me, and I guess my growth has been around how do I become a really good leader, a leader that cares for people but holds them accountable, a leader that is fair but firm. It's very similar to parenting in many, many ways. If I was their best friend, then I wasn't being a good leader. However, I also needed to build relationships that were, deep and meaningful with
Yeah.
people. And I cared about them. I cared about them way more than I did the work, actually. Because I cottoned on pretty quickly based on my own experience being led by a very good leader and being led by a very bad leader, the difference in the incremental value I would offer if I worked for someone who really stretched me and took a real interest in me and believed in me. And I've always said, what is my USP as a person? And it is to unlock or my purpose, I should say, is to unlock the potential of brands and people.
Yeah.
And I have been doing that for a very, very long time. I was doing it as a junior leader, trying to unlock the potential of a brand, but also because I had relationships in agencies. I had relationships, one or two, maybe one direct report at the time. If I could unlock that person's potential and or the agency through great relationships, then I would be successful, because I can't do all the work. I'm not an island. In fact, the more senior you become, the less on the tools you are.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's something that I talk about a lot to my clients. So get a great coach.
Yeah.
Learn from the leaders you've got. And the best leaders I work for, they question things. They used absolutely critical analysis and curiosity all the time. They coached their people. They were great coaches. They wouldn't tell us exactly what to do. They might tell us what the outcome was they wanted. And then they would encourage us to think about how we would get there. And one of the best questions any leader can ask their team or individuals in their team is, what's the barrier that would stop you from doing this?
Yeah.
Be a mindset or something that we don't know as a leader. So you learn so much from leaders, and it has been leadership that has driven me, because I love great leadership and I see the positive impact it has, not just on teams and on the brand and the business, but also on families. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because we all take our work home. Our work comprises of so much of our lives. And if you've got miserable staff because you're a miserable shit of a leader, then that's going to actually play havoc on people's personal lives. And that's something I have a real issue with, because no job is worth that.
Oh, absolutely. And as a recruiter, I hear all sorts of, you can imagine, stories every day. Well, not every day, but regularly. One question I do have, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So I often have myself, a lot of marketers that, they go for interviews, and one thing they're looking for, to your point, is really, really amazing leaders. And it's hard because it's like, you're in a chocolate shop and you're like, well, they all look absolutely amazing. And then you might taste one and go, oh God, no, I'm not going back for that.
Yeah.
It's only once you're in there and you've purchased, So how do we, when you're at that interview stage, is there any questions or any advice you give in the test?
Oh, yes. Yes. There are so many things. I coach on this a lot. Yeah. Your relationship with your leader, and I guess to some extent the relationship they have with their leader, is going to absolutely shape whether you have a great experience or not.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean to say you should look for somebody who's a mirror image to you. The diversity is important. When you are being interviewed, you should always have questions that are very much directed at your leader or new leader. And those questions should they need to align to your needs. And of course, your needs change at different times, right? So my needs as a 32-year-old mother in the workplace are very different to my needs when I was a 52-year-old head of marketing for Visa Australia, New Zealand, South Pacific. I have different needs from a personal perspective, yeah? But most importantly, what are your needs for your future direction? So where are you going and where do you want to go? And is this going to be the right leader for you? So there are a number of questions. One of the first questions should be, okay, if I am a 35-year-old mum or dad, flexibility is pretty important. I do want to be working remotely. Or even if I'm not worried about working remotely, will I have the support of the leadership if I need to be at home with a child or if childcare's fallen over or whatever? So being able to ask that question really up front.
Yeah.
Talk to me about people in the organisation that have families. How does it work when it comes to remote working? Or how does it work when it comes to flexibility? Have no issue in asking that question. If you are worried that if you ask that question, that it might mean you don't get the role, then that was never going to be the right
Yeah.
place. Yeah. So the more direct and upfront you can be about this stuff, the better. The other thing is, trying to understand from this leader, what are they doing that's really making a difference in the organization, and how do they use development, and how do they support people in order to grow and stretch them? Because you're obviously going to be evaluating that for
Yeah.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
How would they define success? What does success look
Yeah.
like in this role? And the person coming in, if it's you, then what are they expecting of them? To try and get a bit of a sense of, okay, is this going to be a job I can absolutely give my all, but I'm being supported? What's how would you describe the culture, and who was the last person you promoted, and how did that work? The more information you can ask about that leader and their style and the sort of decisions they make around the things that will matter to you in your future, the better insights you're going to get in order to say, well, actually, I think that's going to be the right place for me, or I'm not sure I'm going to thrive there.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. When you look back at your career, were there any aha moments, or that sort of like golden light bulb moment for you when you were like, oh, okay, I've got the full package now. Ta-da!
Oh, well, no, there were golden light bulb moments of like, oh my God, I can't believe it. What a disaster I created, but I've learned a lot from it, and thank goodness that happened. But when you say the full package, expand on that. What do you mean?
Well, getting to that, I guess, real sort of moment of perhaps career euphoria where it's
Yeah,
like, you know what, I'm
yeah.
happy, I'm confident, I've got a thriving team, I've got was there ever that moment you got to where it was like, you know what, this is great. This that moment in my career where I've never been happier.
Yeah. Look, I'm an incredibly happy person and I'm an optimistic person. So I'm very rarely unhappy. That's not to say I haven't had clusterfuck jobs. I
Yeah.
have and been miserable in those jobs, but I don't stay miserable. I don't stay in something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Um, so every role has been a hoot and a learning experience here. And I've met so many people who've rocked my world. I really have, as well as the dickheads that we spoke about.
Yes.
And they teach us, how to behave and how not to behave. Every role's been a gift. I reckon I was 10 years at ANZ,
Mm.
Lucy. I tried to talk ANZ out of hiring me
Yeah.
because I'm just not a banking type. I just come back from Singapore
Yeah.
and I met an awesome guy who was leading the marketing for the financial planning unit. And he said, yep, no, we need you. I need someone senior under me that can do this. You just come back from Singapore. You've got all these great skills. And I said, this ain't going to work.
Mm.
I'm not banking. You know, I don't think it'll work. And I'm so sorry, but ANZ's really impressive and everything, but I'm just
Yeah.
not into bank. I'm passionate about it. Anyway, I convinced him and he convinced me that we should give this a go, a test and learn. So we did an experiment. Yeah.
Love
And
it.
I said, I'll come on a 3-month experiment or project or,
Mhm.
consulting sort of scenario. After 1 week, I went home to my husband and said, oh my God, the bank, it has so many resources. It has so many awesome people. I'm going to be trained. I'm going to be developed. I'm going to be invested in. We're working on incredible things and we're helping people figure out how to grow their wealth. And of course, I
Yeah.
was at that age of my sort of early 40s where like that was really important. So, what was going to be some 3-month little contract ended up being 10 years and I moved all around the bank. So that was an amazing opportunity. The best role in the bank I had was the one toward the very end of my 10-year career at ANZ, and that was leading the marketing for the ANZ private bank. So talking to ultra high net worth and high net worth people. And the reason why that was such a hoot was because we had to be really, really creative in how we engaged people with huge amounts of money that were all multi-bank.
Yeah.
They all had more private bank. So we had to really think beyond what was traditional sort of marketing time, and dive way deeper into experiential, and give them access to people and information that they wouldn't otherwise have. And that stretched us. So that was a real hoot. Going from there to the Bank of Melbourne is one of my career highlights for two reasons. One, because I was given huge resources to do something really provocative. And I got to work under a CEO who I reported directly to, that not only trusted my judgment, but absolutely pushed me to be provocative, pushed me to do different things and try things so we could really help the Bank of Melbourne brand cut through. And to be given that support, and he loved marketing. I worked for someone who really saw the value in marketing. He loved marketing. He wanted to be involved in marketing, but not to the point where he had the final say. But we had really great discussions. And as a result, we did some really cool things with the Bank of Melbourne. It was owned by Westpac at the time. And then the last gig, which was Visa. I mean, I remember pinching myself on yet another flight to somewhere exotic. I was sent to the south of France to go to the Cannes line.
Sounds awesome. Okay.
I was sent regularly to amazing places where we would do offsites to really understand a market in Asia, Myanmar, and we would meet business owners, and we as marketers would be able to use all these insights. We did campaigns. I did a campaign with the comedian Ronnie Cheng. We partnered with Blender in the Grass. We partnered with the Fashion Festival. We did so many awesome things. And it was because I had the trust of a group of executives who said, we need to be different, we need to cut through, and who trusted myself and my team. And we had awesome agency partners. Anything I have done in my marketing career has not been done in isolation. I have been the smallest component. All I've done is influence, connect, manage up, and sign off budgets. But the brilliance has come from my team, and the agency partners and those other, I guess, extended elements of our marketing that helped us achieve what we did. And that to me has been such a great, experience. I've been incredibly privileged, and it's been great. I write a book.
It sounds, honestly, I think you've got about 10 aha moments in all of that. Even perhaps I'm sure there's a lot more. Is there any resources or, any thought leaders or, any specific, I don't know, marketers or events or books that you'd say, if you're wanting to get to the top spot one day, get a load of it, start following these people or get on top of this?
I think you can learn from everyone. I really do. I think everybody's a resource. Yeah. I mean, the guy that takes our rubbish, if I have a yarn to him, I'll learn something. It's finding time. Exercise for me is a favorite resource. And I know that's swanky, but I run, and I run in nature. And some of my best ideas come from when I'm exercising. Yeah. So I'm not in front of a screen because I'm always on. Otherwise, and where my mind can just wander. So that's a resource I absolutely tap into 3-4 times a week. Yeah. Talking to people. Podcasts like this, Lucy, being able to access and listen to other people and their experiences, where you go, oh yeah. Oh, I should try that. Oh, I might go and do that. The Keeping It Real podcast, which is, I had to
say,
I run, with Raoul, Gabrielle Doolin. I mean, this teaches me heaps. So yes, I'm a co-host of the podcast and I'm putting forward topics, but the things I learned from listening to Raoul, the things I learned from the keepers, our listeners that send us ideas for topics or to share a story with us, or feedback or insights. Anything Mark Ritson says. I'm a massive Mark Ritson fan. I've mucked around with him for some time in the past. He's been a great supporter of me and some of the work I've done. I've been a massive supporter of him. His mini MBA, do it. Absolutely do it. And if your company won't cover the cost of it, invest in yourself and do it, because boy, it'll pay off. You can also follow him on LinkedIn, and he writes a great column for Marketing Week, which is a UK online marketing magazine. Professor Scott Galloway. Oh my God, do I have the hot spot man? So he's as naughty and rude as I am, and unwoke as I am. So, but he is one smart cookie, and he's got a number of platforms he's on. His email newsletter, No Malice, No Mercy, is awesome. Got the Prof G platform, which is podcasts. Another guy that I sort of accessed just by accident a couple of years ago is an Indian gentleman who's based in the US now, Rishad Tabakawala.
Okay.
And he has this amazing newsletter that I get something from every week that I read it, and it's called The Future Does Not Fit into the Containers of the Past. Rishad Tabakawala. He's also on LinkedIn. He is fantastic. Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO podcast. I love him.
Love him.
Oh, I could go on and on. I tell you, there are two people in my life, well, there's three, my husband, but my two kids, 28 and 26, both in marketing, but in very different fields. I learn so much from them because they're right at the cusp of what's going on. Yeah, you know, they're digital natives. They understand technology very well, and they're both doing really interesting things in different areas of marketing. I'm learning huge amounts from them. Now, the traditional stuff doesn't change. Yeah, having a great strategy, knowing who you're targeting, you know, understand really clearly what the outcomes need to be, how you're going to measure success. All of those things stay the same. It's everything that Mark Ritson speaks about. It doesn't matter what the platform is. It doesn't matter, you know, whether it's digital or whether it's traditional, or whether it's below the line, through the line, above the line, all of those things that I'm just talking about that marketing's about, and it's interest and curiosity in people and in consumers and behaviour. But just looking at, you know, where we're going with AI, I mean, it's fascinating. You must be seeing this. I mean, what are you advising to the people you're talking to in regards to the clients you're finding roles for? What are you talking to them about AI? I'd like to ask you that.
Yeah, look, absolutely, far away. Quite like being asked a question on my own podcast. I find it's interesting. I've spoken to quite a few people that I'd actually consider to be, you know, AI experts. There's one guy, Tony Gruber, he's actually written a book, AI for CEOs. And I'd say to anyone to get a load of that because, yeah, he's a smart cookie. I think everyone's still figuring it out, to be honest. There's no one out there that's right now, I'd say, an absolute uber expert in terms of org structures. And I think what's happening there in regards to AI, it's very much, people are very much starting to factor it in. I think it's going to take another year or so before we really start to see those roles changing. And people start, I think there's a lot of assuming at the moment around, oh, well, we're not going to need a copywriter, or we're going to have to change this, or this is going to be, you know, maybe SEO will be affected. I spoke to a CMO recently who actually said, I think as much as marketing, yes, of course, there's going to be changes around that. And I think with new technologies coming in, it'll be implicated. I think developers specifically in that back end, there's going to be, you know, changes massively where, you know, 16 or 20 stages can be done with one, you know. So it's like really starting to look at how we can upskill there. And I think work with AI in a positive way. Start to think, okay, well, yeah, we've got Chat GPT and look, you know, I think it's a fantastic tool. I'm very aware though, I think with it is, you know, they call it now, what is it? Synthetic slop, whereby everything's just, you know, AI generated. And it's like copy paste, and I can see context straight away, and I'm like, "Oh God, you've not written that." And I think, no, the people, you know, I want authentic content. I want that.
More than ever.
Yeah, I crave it. You know, I don't want some computer that spat something out, and I'm trying to believe that someone else has written it. So I think there's going to be more craving for that real human content, if more so than ever. So look, it's going to be an interesting one and one to watch. And I think, yeah, look, my role, the more I see it, definitely is going to be, you know, getting people that are aware of it. If you've done courses, there's a Marketing Academy AI workshop. Catherine Toms runs that. So I definitely recommend reaching out to her. She does a lot of AI workshops for various businesses. And I know she's a busy lady at the moment. So she's doing well.
Right, that's a great answer. Look, you know, critical thinking, problem solving, using generative AI and doing that in a way that's ethical and productive, you know, they're the top skills apparently that knowledge workers are going to need to thrive. Yeah. So critical thinking, problem solving, and using generative AI. I use AI every day, and it in different ways for different things. And they're saying around 1/5, I think it was, of all current occupations, I've wrote something down here, will be replaced by artificial intelligence by 2030. But the jobs that won't be replaced And particularly given these are jobs like marketing where you actually rely on core human skills. Yeah. So, the traits that are going to be really difficult for AI to replicate, which is curiosity, intuition,
Yeah.
creativity, imagination.
Yeah.
AI can help spark those things. I was listening to a really great podcast the other day of a couple that were in an agency, a marketing agency, that have gone off and they've created a platform, an AI platform to help agencies reduce pitch time,
Mm.
you know so making them way more productive. But it's not just about making the pitch efficient, it's also about sparking more curiosity, sparking more inspiration as part of this AI platform. So if you're not developing creativity, intuition, curiosity, imagination, and continuing to do that, then you aren't going to stay relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the big tip there is that you're not going to develop those if you're in back-to-back meetings and reading emails all day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. I mean, make the time, invest in yourself, as you've said. Yeah.
And play with AI, have a crack at it. There's DeepSeek, there's ChatGPT, there's Copilot, there's so
Mhm.
many options.
Wow.
Then there's the visual ones. I mean, I have a hoot playing with them. The kids laugh at me, but if you don't use it, you lose it,
Well,
right? Or if you
exactly.
find it, you
Mm.
can't possibly talk about it. And I suspect, and you again should answer this one, you're the recruiter, more and more of marketing leaders are going to be expecting people to know how to use AI
Mhm.
for efficiency, and not just in the back room, not just on the developing side, but also those that are leading and those that are running brand campaigns and things. How can they use it for efficiency and for effect, but not to replace the thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's coming down to, I think, individuals that nowadays, if you can be even more technically savvy across this AI
Yeah.
tech that's coming through. And I say to anyone, if you're thinking about upskilling, definitely AI is something you need to factor in 100%. Like there's workshops and training courses that I know that businesses are running. And they're onto a winner because it's the it's the right time. People, are still trying to figure this stuff out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think if you're an older marketer, listen to this, and I'm not going to say what that age is. It's how you're feeling, I suspect. Don't let this pass you by. Don't be fearful of it. I remember when email started. I remember when mobile phones that were smartphones, and when an Apple tablet came out, an iPod, and thinking, oh my god, within minutes you figure this stuff out. It's actually really intuitive. It's not difficult. It really isn't. It's a mindset. So always have a crack.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jack, it has been an absolute pleasure. I feel like I could talk to you all day, to be honest. I really do. I feel like you're just this, infectious energy ball, which, it's just been so great to listen to you. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for inviting me on, Lucy. I've loved our conversation, and like you, I think we're only scratching the surface. Imagine if we were in a bar with a glass
Oh
of wine.
my gosh, bring it on. Bring on the cosmos. I'm back. Remember, the road to CMO isn't always linear. It's filled with challenges, decisions, and moments of transformation. Whether you're charting your course or navigating a career shift, the experiences, wisdom shared today, as with our guests, is invaluable. Thank you for joining us. Keep dreaming big, keep pushing boundaries, and remember that your journey towards becoming a CMO is as much about the destination as it is about the growth you experience along the way. Until next time, continue to innovate, evolve, and carve out your path to CMO.